All right, here we go. Any questions you have for the mayor, please feel free. Let's go through a couple of comments. Some I was able to put up on the screen. Others, not. I didn't have the time, this morning as I was reading through all of them. And thank you, by the way, as always, for your comments. You can contact me at any time. The new overused word for the Democrats is chaos. Makes me cringe every time I hear it. Really nice. They named what they are creating. Chaos, we've talked about this, and I think it's safe to say that really all political pundits do it, but specifically politicians is when it's so noticeable, when they all use the exact same term. Pundits will use things like nothing burger or we could go through them, but that just really stick out that they think is a really brilliant statement, right? But then you have politicians who will say chaos a lot, or they'll have some new word, a MAGA extremist, which is what they were calling our new Speaker of the House instantly out of the gate. So yes, those are cringeworthy to me as well. I know I've talked about that in the past. The other comments I was not able to put up on the screen, but let's go to them and I will read them. Frank, give us all an update today on when Mr. Palmisano, our Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, was going to be in. We need to talk about energy. I have plenty of questions. Give us an idea of what day he's going to be on. Thank you very much and bye. Well, that's a great comment. I know we've been promoting and highlighting an energy show with the Assemblyman. I will contact him because it's so close to election season. Well, it is election season, so close to election day on November 7th. This has been kind of jam-packed the last few weeks, as you've seen. So the Assemblyman was kind enough to put it off at my request until after the election. So I will talk to him maybe even later today and find out when he can be on and get that in the books. And I will let you know. We will highlight it and promote it quite consistently before the interview. Here is another comment. Happy Halloween. Thank you. Happy Halloween to you too. As much as I hate to say it, I am seriously thinking of turning off my porch light for the first time in years. I hate to play into the hands that are, in my opinion, intentionally spewing out fear 24/7, but my neighborhood has been changing. And while I've never been bothered much on Halloween because I'm alone and I don't feel the same. It's the kids that lose out though, so not sure I'll be able to in good conscience. Yeah, that's a tough one. We talked about it yesterday too with candy inflation. Obviously, we talk about inflation a lot on this program, but yesterday we showed you that, what is it? Inflated, what was it? Almost, I think 15% from last year. And last year it went 15%, something like that. So the prices alone, I'm sure, have left a lot of people to say, maybe not this year. Another comment. Cornell University is a disgrace. And to think that this hate is in our backyard sickens me. While I'm not an advocate for student loan forgiveness, if ever there was a reason to walk away for some, this would be justified. Yes, that's a great point. What happened to learning and rational debate, and most of all, respect, especially in an academic environment where inclusion is a never-ending drumbeat? Another great point. No student should fear another, and shame on the administration. I couldn't agree more. We have a lot of articles about that this morning. That is a great point. Obviously, we've talked about the student loan forgiveness and really how the Supreme Court turned it down, but Biden's finding other ways to do it. But if there is ever a time to walk away from that, we have seen, as the New York Post put it, the rot in academia in these last 2 weeks. So all great points. Thank you. You can always reach out. You see that number on the bottom of your screen. We are starting off loaded for bear this morning on this Halloween edition of Frankly Speaking. No, are we having a little video problem? Oh, a little bit of video problem, I understand. Okay, now we're all good. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for the comments. Keep reaching out. We've got to take our first break. Coming up soon, Corning Mayor Bill Bolin, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. A cold, foggy day there on Market Street. I understand my music played a little long in the first segment, so let me again wish you a happy Halloween. We have a lot to get to this morning. We are going to be talking with the mayor in just a few moments, so you'll want to stay tuned for that. That's Bill Bolin, mayor of Corning. We've got a lot to cover with him. And I'm hoping that you were able to see and hear all of the comments from viewers. Thank you to everybody reaching out. We are going to talk about college campuses and the rot on college campuses. But before that, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. And this is another interesting kind of backup piece to what we've been saying. This is coming from the Washington Post. China and Russia are casting the United States as agents of global instability. And this is from that military forum that I brought to you yesterday. They're trying to paint the idea to other countries that we are the problem, that we are what leads to this global instability, that we want this in the long run. And we talked about this extensively with former Congressman Tom Reed, and we talked about it extensively when he wasn't on the program, about how China wants to paint themselves, along with Russia, as the stabilizing factor. They want to paint themselves as the world superpower. They believe that they are there or very close to there. And that's why we keep talking about the threat of China. They use what is happening in Israel, even though they're with Russia, they use Ukraine. So very interesting. That piece just backing up again what we've been saying for a long time on the program. So we're going to talk about this anti-Semitism on college campuses. It is heartbreaking. Like that one viewer reached out and said it sickens you. It really does. How about this? Just to show you and give you an idea. And it's hard to keep track of all the schools that now have a problem with this. It's you jump around and you forget all the college campuses, if I'm being honest. Yale, this one's out of Yale. Imagine this. Yale's campus newspaper is being criticized for censoring a pro-Israel columnist by removing what it called unsubstantiated, this is an exact quote, unsubstantiated claims that Hamas raped women and beheaded men. The Yale Daily News cut out the reference from an October 12th column by sophomore Sahar Tartak. She said, "I'm still collecting my thoughts on this erroneous correction." She reposted a comment by a Yale professor who asked, "Are the hostage-taking, murder of children in their beds, burning of people alive, and parading of nude captive women in the streets also unsubstantiated?" Yeah. The most disturbing part about this is that we've seen this with our own eyes, many times not wanting to, but online and seeing those sickening images. And I talked about this early on, that it made the program kind of tough sometimes in the morning because we were all so heartbroken, we're all so angry. And to think that the campus newspaper censored, that's the only term for it, censored a pro-Israel columnist by removing what it called, I've got to just quote that again, quote, unsubstantiated claims that Hamas raped women and beheaded men. We've got the mayor coming in, so let me take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and joining me in that studio, according Mayor Bill Bolin. Thanks for being back on the show.
Good morning, Frank. Always good to be with you.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to you, too.
We have so much to cover. First, let's have a little fun because the People's Wall 76, we talked with Barbara Bloomer recently. What an amazing book.
I tell you, it's been a passion of mine that I've shared with Barbara for many years, but her effort is produced a seminal work. It's actually adding to the piece of art, that beautiful public piece of art that we have down in City Hall.
And there, I've got your picture up with Mayor Nazar. I love it.
First and foremost,
yes,
right, Frank?
Yeah, isn't that great? Yeah, of course.
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Sure, of course.
I just want to, as always, I just want to compliment you in the way that you conduct your business.
Oh, well, thank you.
We're different political parties, but on air, you're always extremely fair and you give equal time to everybody, and that speaks to your professionalism, and I know your community appreciates you for that.
Well, thank you, but that's not to get away
now
from
that
your
I
picture.
Yeah,
I know. But no, I do got to say, I couldn't agree with you more. That book adds such a next level to those photos that we all grew up with and seen for years.
It's actually an addition to the art.
Yeah,
and that's what I've shared with Barbara. She's taken it to the next level, and this is something that some of those stories were going to be lost, and they're not lost anymore. They will be with us forever. So it's a tremendous contribution to our community. And before I forget, her book sales end on November 2nd.
Yes.
So
So pre-order now. You can go to heritagevillagesfl.org, and I'll try to put that up on the screen too, because
please do.
the
People
phone
should-
number is 607-937-5281.
make great Christmas gifts.
Oh, that'd be perfect. And you can get lost in it. I mean, I talked with her before the interview, about an hour and a half, just sitting here going page by page. Because, I mean, I think I talked to her about it. I don't think you could have done a project with this much research if it wasn't COVID. Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
really, I mean, she put so much time into that.
And you can't do that kind of work unless you're Barbara Bloomer.
Well,
because
that's
she
true,
calls
too.
herself the sleuth, and boy, I'll tell you, she
Yeah,
is.
it was amazing.
Absolutely.
So it is election season coming
Yeah.
up. Can you believe it? It's already here.
It's here.
Yeah, it's here. So this is your last 2-year term as mayor, self-imposed. You made this self-imposed. Why did you decide to make that decision?
Every organization needs fresh blood and fresh ideas, and frankly, a fresh face. And it's been 8 years. It will be 8 years.
Right.
I'll be 70. I'm going to be 72 November 6th.
I
Happy
had a
birthday,
note to
Bill.
wish you a happy birthday. I had it in my
But,
calendar.
Yeah, so far I've been graced with, sound bodies, hopefully sound mind, at least in some opinions. But, I'll be 74 when I leave office. I feel good, and I've got a bucket list item that I'd like to get to for a number of years. So
Yeah.
I think it's time, and give someone an opportunity to bring their fresh ideas.
And we'll talk about that the next 2 years in a second. But what stands out to you? Your biggest accomplishments, we'll make it plural, of your term so far.
Well, I think the one which was most contentious was redevelopment of St. Vincent's, now called Parish Heights. There was an example of, a family disagreement, a community
Right.
disagreement. But the thing that made it most important was people didn't stop listening. People didn't stop working at it, whether
Right.
it been the neighbors and their concerns, the developer coming back with a variation of their initial plan, and the city council as well, keeping open to hearing, modifications to the plan. And what we came up with is something that's really good, that includes keeping the church building, which was always an aim. Going to be a new building over there for seniors, and a little brand new pocket park over there. So the combination of all those things, I think, really made it a notable accomplishment.
Now, I mentioned it's 2-year terms as mayor. Would you want to see that change? Is 2 years long enough?
It's been a pet project of mine.
Oh, is it really?
From the
Oh, okay.
beginning. I mean, when I first came into office, 2-year term, a year goes, you're learning, and a year goes by, and all of a sudden, because of the way that you have to petition to get on the ballot, you're campaigning again. Waste of time, very inefficient, and it also promotes short-term thinking. If you have longer-term view of what you try to accomplish, 2 years is not enough. And I'm happy to report that Monday night at the city council meeting, we will vote to approve a 4-year term for mayor.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And what a perfect time for you to do that as you're on your last term.
Well,
Not to look like it's just for you, right?
No.
Yeah.
Actually, Frank, the committee that I formed to do that, I shared with them my personal hope that they would make that effective in 2025, specifically so that it didn't apply to me.
Right. And the reason I mentioned 2 years, because it isn't long enough, really. So what do you want to accomplish in your final 2 years?
Well, we've talked about it last time I was here, but it bears repeating, this update to our comprehensive plan. That hasn't been done in 20 years.
Wow.
And that's we get caught up in the day-to-day of running our community. But this is an opportunity to step back, bring the whole community to the table, look at it from a higher level view, and take into account all the resources and opportunities and challenges that we have, and look at what we want our community to be in the next 5, 10, and 15 years. So I'm really, really looking forward to that.
And has the community weighed in heavily on this comprehensive plan?
Not yet, because we're just beginning. Actually,
I
the
couldn't
consultant
remember.
I believe the consultant is just being hired as we speak.
Gotcha.
So and last time it actually took a full 2 years to do that. And I don't expect, because it's an update, we can use some of what was done the last time. But I suspect it'll be a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. So
Right.
it's an extended process. But one of the themes of that is widespread, constant community outreach.
Right.
We must hear from people. And what people want, not just certain interests.
Sure. And what do you consider, when you look at it, when you think about the next 2 years, as the most important part for you when you're talking about the comprehensive plan?
attracting new people to our community, with modern living and people being able to work, pretty much where they want to,
Right.
thanks to COVID. No thanks. To
Yeah,
COVID.
I know.
But, people can live where they want to. And Corning is kind of that idyllic community, and we need to pursue attracting those people as best we can. Also, the further development of Corning as a world-class destination. We are already a world-class destination, but with the resources and the people that we have to apply to that challenge, we can raise it to the next level.
I agree, and you're right. We're already a world-class destination, but you can always grow.
Absolutely.
And to your point earlier, you can't just sit back and, like you said, worry about the day-to-day. You've got to look at the long term.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll just mention one other thing, Frank. I know my colleague Kate Patterson, who's also running unopposed for re-election. But she and I share an interest in trees.
Okay.
We've taken down a lot of trees in the city of Corning over the years and not put up, as many for sure. We share a vision of reforesting the city and reclaiming that beautiful canopy, which has been historical in our city, to promote Corning as a walking city.
Can you stay with us through a quick break?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, I'm your host, Frank Acom. Joining us in the studio, Corning Mayor Bill Bolin. Thanks again for giving us so much time this morning.
Great to be with you, Frank.
Okay, so what do you see? You've got 2 years left. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing Corning?
It's a general one, but I would like to see our community come together. Historically, partially geographically, because we have a river that divides the south side from the north side.
Sure.
But there has been not bad feeling, but challenging feeling about the relationship between those two sides of the river.
Sure.
And I would hope that with some of the investment that's happening on the north side, that there's a feeling that can change,
Sure.
and that we can truly become one community and put some of this historical stuff to rest.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talk about community so often on this program, and I was talking to people about the book that we mentioned at the beginning, People's Wall 76, and I don't think something like that could be done today because it would almost be, the picking and choosing of people would be controversial.
Oh, it was controversial.
Even then, too? Okay.
If we can carry on, no, it was Mayor Nasser who chose the people on the wall.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Barbara points out she not only did the stories of the people on the wall, but the stories of people who were not chosen on the wall.
Yeah, she did mention that.
There was some hard feelings
Yeah,
there.
I'm sure there was. Okay, let's have a little fun.
Yeah,
so
sure.
it is Halloween day. Now, I didn't dress up because I wanted to be professional, but
No,
I
you
did.
didn't, Frank.
I did wear this tie for you, if you notice. Gaffer.
Oh, there you go.
I don't
And
think they
that's
can
your
see
costume.
Yeah, that's my. No, it's not really a costume, but I did dress. I wore
Let's
the
tell
tie.
like it is, Frank.
Yeah.
When we arranged this interview,
Uh-huh.
I said that I was willing to come in dressed as my hero, John Young,
You're right.
astronaut, spaceman.
Yeah.
And initially you said in your email response, I'm all in. But when you realized I was serious,
Yes.
you backed out. So
No, I said you can do it, but I'm not even going to address it. I'm not even going to mention it. So you're
Yeah,
going to come
you
in
did
dressed
say-
like an astronaut, and I'm just going to act like it's business as usual. But you're right. So are you dressing up?
Yes, I am.
Oh, that's great. And you're going to be down here for the festivities on Market Street, right?
Absolutely. Wonderful to be with the
So
kids.
much
and,
fun.
lots of good candy.
Yeah, I look forward to this every year. Even when I wasn't on Market Street, I would come because, first of all, I don't understand half the costumes anymore because I don't watch the newest movies. I guess that says something about me. But I do love seeing. You never know what you're going to see.
I mean, and it's a horde of kids.
It's
It's a lot
amazing.
of kids.
I can't believe our new view looking over Market Street. I'm going to try to take some video today just so people can see how many. Because if you've never been before, you can't believe it.
Yeah.
And that's from 4 to 6 p.m. tonight here on Market Street. So take advantage of that. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so you are going to be in a costume. Is it going to be an astronaut?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. All right. I'll come down and see you. As you head into Election Day, well, before we do that, before we talk about what you would say to voters, let's mention something that you and I were chatting about. And the race for county legislator has been so refreshing.
Absolutely. I mean, to the credit of both of those candidates, they've run positive campaigns. They've modern campaigns, and to their credit, I mean, they really have emphasized positivity. They've shared their message. none of the acrimony, none of the negativity. No. It is actually an example I hope we will carry forward in all, not only the county, but also the local elections as well. Really to their credit.
I couldn't agree more. It is refreshing at a time when everything is so split and everything is so contentious that this has been nothing but respect both of them have for each other.
Absolutely. And when you talk about respect, I hope and encourage people to respect the commitment of these two individuals seeking this office, to come out and vote. You know, certainly you've heard from these people because they have been going door to door. They've communicated in a lot of different channels, and that's a huge commitment on their part. I would ask, again, the community to come out and respect that commitment by casting their vote.
I couldn't agree more, and I've talked with so many people about this on the program, but that's a tough thing, and we go back to saying community. I know these elections aren't the presidential elections, right? But they're so important, and there are things going back to you with the comprehensive plan and some of the plans these could not be more important for your day-to-day life, the individual, these
Absolutely.
Kind of elections.
And, you know, I'm running unopposed,
right.
But still it would be great to have a vote of confidence, not necessarily in my personality, but in the kinds of things that we want to achieve and the things that we are achieving.
So just before we go, as we head to Election Day, November 7th, you can early vote, but November 7th, what would you say to the voters?
About myself, Frank, I would say that I've been on the job 24/7. I never ducked a controversial issue, willing to engage people where they are, talk to people, and I would like to believe that I've represented civility in the way that we handle challenges and differences in this community. So based on that, I would, again, love a vote of confidence for where we've been and vision for where we want to be.
And also, back to your point, I think that's a great way of putting it, and the respect for the people that have worked so hard for this, like Absolutely. With the legislative race, but also the contested races. And, you know, it's not all easy peasy for an incumbent. You still have to do some work.
Yeah, you have to do work all the time. And just one other thing, Frank. I think from the beginning of my public life, I've emphasized nonpartisanship at the local level. And that big word simply means that for me, there's one criteria in the local level. You make a judgment, your best judgment about who you think the best candidate is, and vote accordingly. You and I can disagree about who that is based on how we think, but you know, using that single criteria, who do you think the best candidate? Vote for that person.
I couldn't agree more. Well, thanks for giving us so much time this morning. I would say best of luck on November 7th, but I think you might be okay.
I got it, Frank.
All right.
Thanks for your time.
Yes, of course. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Boy, it looks like Halloween out there on Marcus Street this morning, doesn't it? Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you again to Corning Mayor Bill Bolin for being on the program this morning. And I do want to remind you that it's not too late to order that book that we were talking about together, The People Wall 76, The Mural in City Hall. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, that may be up. That interview with Barbara Bloomer may be up on YouTube later today or tomorrow. So you can find that if you missed it. But that's going to be an amazing book. I got to see the book, but it's obviously kind of the rough draft-ish. No, I wouldn't even say that, because if that's a rough draft, wow. It's not the final copy. I'll put it that way. And it is amazing. I like I said, I spent an hour and a half just looking at it, and that was quickly. Okay, we have a lot to talk about this morning on the national front. And this anti-Semitism on college campuses, it's so troubling. It's so heartbreaking. Representative Wesley Hunt, he has 3 master's degrees from Cornell University. He has sent a letter to his college expressing his concern of deeply disturbed by the continued reports of anti-Semitism on campus. You do have a lot of people speaking out on this. Alan Dershowitz said Harvard doesn't, this is a strong, no, I wouldn't say strong line, but this is strong language, so just be ready. Harvard doesn't deserve donations until it condemns, and he says, quote, Hitler's youth on campus. Now, do you see how much I jump around here? 1 minute it's Cornell, then it was Yale, then it's back to Harvard. And I want to highlight that because it shows the overall rot, as the New York Post put it late yesterday, in the elite universities. But Alan Dershowitz was on Newsmax, and he said, these kids who signed these statements while people were still bleeding to death, These are Hitler youth. These are Hitler's youth, and the president of Harvard refuses to condemn them. She's now finally, after a lot of pressure, been willing to condemn Hamas, but she's still not willing to condemn Hitler's youth among her students and among her faculty. And until she does that, I urge everybody to stop contributing to Harvard, to Yale, to the City University of New York, to the University of Pennsylvania. Send your contributions to decent organizations that know the difference between right and wrong. And there is a piece by Ethan Oliner, a student at Cornell University, a junior studying industrial and labor relations at Cornell, and is the president of Kendma, which runs Jewish Orthodox services. And Ethan writes, and I'll put it up on the screen here. Ethan writes, Cornell campus hate is the same that fueled the atrocities of 10/7 in Israel. He talked about those posts that we mentioned to you yesterday, and you can't use some of the language, it's sickening, but those posts that caused essentially a lockdown on campus where they said they're going to shoot up 104 West, which is the kosher dining hall and next door to the Center of Jewish Living, the only Jewish house on campus. Other sadistic statements, I don't want to say it, but they're disgusting and despicable. He said, we saw the massacre that unfolded in Israel. We never thought that that could happen here, in a college campus in America. We students are scared for our lives, scared to go to class, scared to sleep in our own beds. This is on college, to that viewer's point that made the comment earlier. This is on college campuses, some right, like in this instance, in our own backyard here in the United States. He gives a history of what they've been dealing with at Cornell. This is a piece you can find at the New York Post. But he finishes, the Cornell University Police Department is protecting our community, and the governor informed us we will be receiving extra security cameras shortly. I'm just looking at something here, sorry. As for the perpetrators of the vandalism and the rape and death threats, both hate crimes, I expect them to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. An example must be made to clearly show this is not okay. The only way to make sure this cycle of hate comes to an end is to find those responsible and hold them accountable. And I couldn't agree more. You wonder, though, because it is this, where are these students learning this? And that goes to the point that we're going to mention here in just a moment, but this rot on campuses that, well, let's get to it. There's no sense putting it off. That's why I was looking over here at my time just to make sure. Yes, we are doing good. Okay. So from the New York Post editorial board says Cornell University Jewish threats prove how deep campus rot runs. The latest in campus anti-Semitism horror has been Jewish students at Cornell dehumanized and threatened with death. This is one of the comments. It is graphic, but I mentioned it to you yesterday. If I see a pig-mailed Jew, I will stab you and slit your throat, read one threat. And it was posted online to a Greek Life website. Another comment, he said, eliminate Jewish living from Cornell campus. The university has responded by making the usual noises about not tolerating anti-Semitism. Yeah, almost boilerplate comments at this point. But has cravenly advised staff and students to avoid that dining hall. In other words, says the Post editorial board, the school caved to the hate spewers, taking a step toward precisely what was demanded: the elimination of Jewish living from the Cornell campus. And I thought that was such a powerful but important point to make. Giving in, in the old days, we don't negotiate with terrorists, giving in to the terroristic threats. Now, this isn't a shock, as was stated in this piece and something we've mentioned on the program frequently, that associate professor who said that he found Hamas's terrorist attacks exhilarating and energizing. That was a Cornell professor. And they, too, go through some of the examples. We've had that despicable graffiti at Cornell. They also go through some of the other colleges where this has happened, Columbia, etc. It's gotten so bad, and I thought this was another really good point from this piece. It's gotten so bad that Erwin Chemerinsky, the lefty dean, the far left dean of UC Berkeley's famed law school, has woken up, said the Post. In a Sunday op-ed, he announced, quote, never in my life have I seen or felt the anti-Semitism of the last few weeks. Chemerinsky, of course, has been hoisted by his own petard here. He, like many other progressives on faculties nationwide, helped incubate the poisonous ideologies that are now loudly shouting their hate. That's the point we've been making on this program, on other issues as well. But when you are an incubator of this hate, it should come as no surprise when it rears its ugly head. As with the responses from Cornell, Harvard, UPenn, and the rest of the appeaser crowd, his outrage is far too little and much, much too late. Yes, the seeds of hate were planted a long time ago. Well, you know what? We're going to talk a little bit more about this. Let me take a short break. Again, I wanted to mention, because we talked about it with the mayor, if you've never been to this before, it is a fun event. The Corning Area Business Alliance has announced the details for this year's Trick or Treat festivities. Children and families are invited to enjoy a safe and delightful Halloween experience as they collect treats from participating businesses and venues. It is, of course, today, downtown Corning, right here on Marcus Street, from 4 to 6 p.m. If you do go out, I'm going to be here for a little bit. Come over and say hi. Love to see the costumes. All right, we're going to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox again. Happy Halloween. Everybody stay safe out there. Okay. Alan Dershowitz has been very active in his commentary on these rallies and the anti-Semitism. He says, and I would love to hear your opinion on this, there are no pro-Palestinian rallies, only pro-Hamas anti-Semitic hate. So this is Alan Dershowitz and Andrew Stein at the New York Post. Despite the headlines about pro-Palestinian protests on university campuses, in cities around the world and on the Arab street, there's not been a single rally that is actually pro-Palestinian. All have been anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism, and often anti-Semitic. I thought that was a fair position to take. Now, there's been a lot of infighting, according to, who was this through? Well, a lot of infighting in the Democrat Party over this. What did I do with it? One example, though, is Representative Andre Carson, repeatedly called Representative Josh Gottheimer, both Democrats, this is what's interesting, cowardly in an interview, and said, quote, "We can handle it like gentlemen, or we can get into something else." Wow. Carson was responding to a post on Twitter by Gottheimer where he slammed 15 Democrat colleagues who voted against or present on a House resolution expressing support for Israel. He called it despicable. Yeah, can you imagine that? 15 Democrat colleagues who voted against support for Israel or just present, which, speaking of cowardly, Carson's threat drew criticism from prominent Jewish progressives. Jonathan Greenblatt, CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, posted, "It's inexcusable for any member of Congress to threaten a colleague, and especially erroneous that Representative Andre Carson is threatening a Jewish member for speaking out at a moment when we're seeing a massive spike in anti-Semitism. What's the point? Does he think it's productive to intimidate?" That's a really good point. And then you add on top of that, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre on Monday refused to call anti-Israel protesters on college campuses across America extremists, which is interesting because we know this administration, many in politics today, throw around the term extremist very frequently. And I'm not going to go through her back and forth, but she was asked by Fox News, "We hear you guys, though, talk about extremists all the time. It's usually about MAGA extremists. So what about these protesters who are making Jewish students feel unsafe on college campuses?" She says, "I have been very, very clear. We are calling out any form of hate, any form of hate. It's not acceptable. It should not be acceptable here. And we are going to continue to call that out." She again refusing 2 or 3 times here to use the term extremist. But then she went on to attack the former president, talking about the quote unquote Muslim ban. But there's so many examples. I already got to take another short break. Okay, last two things quickly. There's a piece by Stephen Collinson, who very much, like the answer there from the press secretary, tries to use a piece about the new wave of anti-Semitism that tries to use it as another way to attack perhaps Trump or his supporters, which I don't like the politicalization of this. And, you know, he mentions January 6th and the like. I don't think support for Israel necessarily, I didn't think it did. Maybe I'm naive that it didn't have to be so political. But that's typical Stephen Collinson, so not really a shock. But the editorial board at the Wall Street Journal has a piece, The Global War on the Jews. Anti-Semitism surges even in the West, which shows why Israel exists. And it's a really good piece. You'll have to find it for yourself. But today's threat to democracies are different. But one lesson is the same, and it is crystal clear. A Western society that can't or won't muster the will to defend its Jewish neighbors and fellow citizens won't be able to defend itself. We're going to move away from that topic when we come back. Stay with us, wrapping things up. Man, went fast this morning. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We talked a little bit about this yesterday on the program, and we've talked about it since Dean Phillips announced that he was running to primary President Biden. This has become a major issue, and I just wanted to highlight it for you because we were ahead of the game on talking about it. But Joe Biden's big New Hampshire blunder by attempting to reorder the primary calendar, the president set himself up for a rude awakening in January. I'm reliably told, said the author of this piece, I'm reliably told it was Biden himself who wanted to reorder the party's nominating calendar to make South Carolina the leadoff state, rewarding the state that revived his 2020 candidacy and elevating the more moderate black voters who shaped Democrat primaries there. So basically what he was trying to do was preempt a nuisance primary challenge that would embarrass him before the general election, but that may be precisely what he has invited upon himself with this mistake. His advisors and the DNC made a big mistake. This was not necessary. There was no reason to displace us, says Terry Shoemaker, a longtime Democratic power player. There's a lot of quotes in this piece from Politico, and it is really interesting. To those who say New Hampshire is moot now because there's no delegates at stake, at least if the DNC doesn't cave, I'd point out that delegate accumulation was beside the point for most of these races. It's the perception of the state's results that shape campaigns. There's very little upside and a lot of downside for Biden, said Steve Dupree. Ooh, got fire trucks in the background. If he ignores New Hampshire, or we'll say doesn't take it seriously, he loses. But if he goes all in and blesses the write-in campaign and loses, then it's even worse. He's got to win now. A lot of noises, a lot of sound effects on the program this morning. As for Biden's decision to try to push back New Hampshire, he said it amounted to an attempt to disenfranchise New Hampshire voters. So Representative Dean Phillips, who's primarying him, had this to say about that. We've seen a lot of leaders in this country who like to change the rules when the rules don't suit them. So Joe Biden supporters are launching that write-in campaign after the disagreement with the state party about the primary season. On the night of the New Hampshire primary, the eyes of the world will turn to the very first votes cast of the 2024 election. And it's important to show the world that thousands of New Hampshire voters are supporting President Joe Biden, said a Write-In Joe Biden campaign website. That's going to be very interesting. And to Dean Phillips' credit, a very smart move on his part. All right, we've got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Last one. And we're going to wrap things up here on Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. According to Fox News Media, Democrats, they are warning Trump may defeat Biden in 2024 and that the White House should be terrified if you look at these poll numbers. Now, speaking with The Atlantic, Dean Phillips, who again is primarying the president, says he does not believe Biden will beat Donald Trump next November and said everybody without exception shares his fear. He claimed that Biden allies would often tell him in private conversations that Biden should not run for a second term, but have been unwilling to comment publicly on the matter. Look, just because he's old, that's not a disqualifier. But being old, in decline, and having numbers that are clearly moving in the wrong direction, it's getting to red alert kind of stuff. Another Democrat strategist, or I should say a Democrat strategist, because that's not what Dean Phillips is, who spoke to The Hill under anonymity, said anyone who doesn't think Trump could win in 2024 was an absolute fool. Wow. Okay, yeah, we're out of time. Mike Johnson, according to a piece by Newsweek, is already making some MAGA people mad, giving you all sides of the issue here. That's specifically about the funding for Israel, which I don't know who these people are. It's not politicians necessarily. It's the commentators and the like. I don't know. It seems kind of early for that, but I know he's splitting up the Israel funding and the Ukraine funding. And Cindy Adams for the New York Post has a piece this morning. The world's on fire, and all the haters want to do is go after Donald Trump. That's Cindy Williams. Interesting. I didn't know she got into politics. I thought she was more of a gossip columnist. Okay, one positive story before we go. The Steuben County Sheriff and the Steuben Prevention Coalition Opioid Committee, they received more than 81 pounds of expired, unwanted, and unused prescription medication on Saturday at the biannual Drug Prescription Take-Back Collection. The event was held in recognition of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency's national campaign. The illegal use of prescription drugs casts a wide net of public safety-related issues and offer loved ones a chance to fight substance abuse at home. Thank you for all your hard work. Well, I hope everyone has a fun, safe Halloween. Thank you to Corning Mayor Bill Bolin for being on the program. He mentioned he's going to be in Centerway handing out candy, dressed as an astronaut. We will be here at the station if you want to stop by and say hi. It is a fun event. It runs, what did I say, from 4 till 6 right here on Marcus Street. So anyway, even if you don't go to the Marcus Street one, I hope that you have a fun, safe Halloween, and that we'll be back tomorrow morning and that you'll join us starting at 7 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, right here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, have a great day, everyone.